There we go. And good morning to everybody. It was interesting just earlier today. I finally got around to uploading the uh, chat from last week about the 33 Chicago Fair. And it's interesting that the statistics, we have a small group here today of 11, but it's nice to see that sometimes 100 or more people are watching it on YouTube. So it's great to have this stuff documented. Uh, just start saying some of you guys are definitely gluttons for punishment. I, did a talk yesterday for the Adventurer Club, and I saw Wayne on. Beth, were you on yesterday as well?
No, I was on last week, but I had to miss last night. But I did get the link for the replay, so I am going to watch the replay.
Oh, okay. Well, I saw, because at the very beginning they say who's from where and whatever, and it's, again, people scattered all around. It's one of the interesting things, although we talk about the New York World's Fair, it obviously had quite an appeal. And when we were trying to get the publisher interested in doing our first book, because Arcadia usually does books on, the southwest side of, whatever town, they're very localized. And when we said we want to do one in this event, and they said, well, that's not our usual marketing. And we said, well, it's going to have people from around the world that went there, and they said, okay, we'll do it, and it became their bestseller. So it was really interesting that they could finally see it. My picture's very blurry. Okay.
I don't know why. I was gonna tell you, but then
Let me turn off the camera for a second, and I'll start again. So
It's a little bit.
sometimes it does that, but we're not going to look too much at me. We're going to look at the fair. So mentioned in past weeks, I've got stuff that's been in the queue for absolutely forever to get restored. Basically, my process is I have a laptop sitting here with the scanner on it. I scan stuff, and the scanning takes, for the average slide, about 3.5, 4 minutes. But the cleanup takes a lot longer than that. So when I first started doing this, I was doing a scan and doing a cleanup, doing a scan, doing a cleanup, and I realized I would never get all this stuff done. So now I'm scanning it, and I'm realizing I'm never going to get all this stuff done. But what I've got is thousands of photos in the.
no better now, Bill.
What's that?
It's no better than when I walked over there before.
I'll tell you, it looks perfectly clear on my screen. What do other people see?
Bill, it doesn't look out of focus. It looks like data loss.
Interesting. I do not know what that would be. Well, let's see how it looks when I get to the pictures here. Let me go up to the first batch and get this ready. This batch is one that I've recently just finished, and let me go to share screen.
It could be, Bill, that you're sitting in the fountain of the planets.
Yes, it's the mist from the fountains going on. That's what's doing it.
And let's face it, at our age, a soft focus filter is good.
Yeah.
Lucille Ball and Doris Day probably paid a lot of money for those.
The Hollywood trick, put Vaseline on the screen, on the lens, right? Anyway, we'll get in. How's the pictures? The picture looks sharp?
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
Yep.
Great. This is one of a number of pictures I bought years ago. Somebody had put these on eBay about 10, 15 years ago, and they were large slides. They're about twice the size of a standard 35 millimeter slide. And I believe they were taken for newspaper and magazine use, and they did a really nice job on them. And but it being so big, they don't fit inside the Nikon scanner. So I have to do them on the flatbed scanner, which doesn't do as good a job as taking out the dirt and stuff, which is why they were in my to-do pile forever, because everything had to be done manually. But it's a great day at the fair. I as soon as I start looking at this, when I see that the hat and the feathers, and it's just, where did those things go? I mean, they were so big, so big. Randy, you went to Expo 67, right? Do you remember any feathers and hats there?
I did not go to.
Oh, you did. I thought you had been, because I don't remember that these were everywhere. Disneyland, all over the place, and it seemed like in 1967 they were no longer cool. I think I see maybe one person in pictures wearing them. Okay, the Brotherhood, the Foundation of World Peace, the Masonic Center, and to go across the little bridge into it, they had the side doors, and off in the back they had classrooms they gave events in. The Mormon Pavilion, the poles sticking up were for a fake sky. You can see that if we zoom in, they're down low. They're all furled up here. Let me let somebody else in. The whole idea here was that you would block out the world behind it, including that very pesky and very annoying A&P supermarket sign that Robert Moses disliked. But in reality, they didn't really work that well. And many days, matter of fact, in most days, the picture showed these banners are up. But this must have been a particularly windy day or something because they're down. And another different view. I don't know if this long wire stretching down is here, but maybe they were getting ready to put up a scaffold and do something. Some of these pictures are taken early in the fair as we bounce around again. You know, as I mentioned, I think they were intended for publication use. I think that people got in there very, very early, and in some cases we'll see construction shots. And these are all just kind of mixed in with no central theme. They came in about, I think, about 12 different envelopes and sets of stuff. So that's what I'm saying, that they move back and forth all over. So we're back over to the Vatican. Obviously, it was a very, very popular attraction, and the lines were generally like this. I mean, I think every time I went there, this long or longer. And you can see people stretch out here. I always joke online about the ever-present nuns, but again, it's kind of interesting because the nun is standing out here and waiting to get in. But it was my understanding that they were allowed to go in early before the pavilion opened, that they get special access, and then they all got a special VIP guest. But either she's gone in the morning and come back again, or they didn't let the guests that are with her going in. But boy, the nuns sure love the fair.
Look how nicely dressed everybody was. And you don't see any women wearing pants.
Oh, no, no. I mean, back then, the only people that wore jeans were, you know, degenerate youth like myself. I mean, you look at the woman here and, you know, she's got this pink outfit on and the high heels. I've never worn high heels in my life. I cannot imagine. I can't walk in them at all, but walking around in the fair all day.
Try it sometime, Bill. I at a car show several years ago. Some guy had a beautiful Cadillac convertible in the back seat. He had a mink stole and a pair of like stiletto heels. Well, the stiletto heels were size 12, which is, I got them from some drag queen or something. They fit me. So somewhere there's a picture of me in stiletto heels standing in front of a Cadillac.
We'll have to go online on the internet and look for that one.
Yeah, well, if you can find it, let me know because I'd love to
Yeah,
see
I
it.
think
Still
we all
got
have
it,
some
too.
pictures we'd like to see again, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Again, very similar to the other picture because he was taking a whole bunch of them, but the other one had no people in front of the bridge. Some minor details.
There's a woman in pants.
What's that?
Where?
The last picture, there's a woman in pants.
Let's see that.
She's
Oh, yeah.
probably
Just to
in
the
pants,
right.
but they're
Well-
not jeans. Yeah,
No, they're not jeans.
Yeah,
right.
don't forget, this is when Mary Tyler Moore was allowed
Yeah.
to wear capri
Capri.
pants, like, you know, like one scene each episode.
Yeah. Yeah, this one's not wearing capri pants because there's no stirrup pulling them down, but they're on the tighter side anyway.
Yeah, that's a good catch and a very rare find too.
Yeah.
My mother always wore a dress and a kerchief. She always wore a kerchief everywhere. she
Oh,
went.
yeah. Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, it sounds like my grandmother, you know, always wearing a kerchief on her head. This one I got a real kick out of being an airplane enthusiast. You know, this is still the days of the constellations flying overhead. So, you know, big, massive propeller-driven planes. Jets were just taken over at this point in time. Can't tell the livery, so I don't know what airline it was, but you know, they were big planes. I remember one of them crashed not too far from where we lived, and we went out to see it. And that was the first time I'd ever been up close to a real airplane, and I was just amazed how big the engines were on these things.
How come you can't
That's a
spot the
constellation, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
why can't you spot the AMP sign in that photo, even with the banners down?
Well, again, the banners are probably down because of the wind or, you know, some other issue, but the fair is obviously open and they were up almost in almost every shot I have, they're up, but here they're down for whatever reason.
I think it's the
Where's,
angle of the
where's the
shot.
AMP sign?
Yeah, it's the angle. I think if you went a little bit higher, you'd see it.
Oh, okay. It's behind the towers probably.
What are you looking
And that
for?
later became
Oh, the AMP sign? No, you
the
can't.
AMP sign, yeah.
Where is it?
Yeah, it would be back here, but you can't see it from, but we were further away you could, but we're too close and too low down. Then we get into, like I said, some of these are of the construction phase. I've got some of them with its giant things that X across the windows showing that they're, the glass is in, but the work is still underway. And you can see out here in the tunnel, there's still stuff looks like a car with a tarp on it, another car with a tarp on it. So the fun things you pick up that there's still, the cars have been put on the track, but they're still painting, they're still doing all sorts of work. So they're not open yet. And then when you look down at the very bottom, yeah, it's not open yet because there's a porta potty outside. And here's the X's on the windows here. It's interesting. They put the X
Bill,
windows so nobody thinks that the glass is not there. But when you see how dirty this was, it'd be hard to imagine somebody couldn't see the glass. Yeah, Randy.
Bill, was there an entry somewhere in that building where they could just, I know the motors were removed from the car, the engines, but they could just like push them in, or do they have to
Yeah,
lift
they
the
brought
bike
them in
frame?
on the lower level, and then there was an elevator that would take them up to the track here. And they had a problem one day where somebody was pushing a car from the the maintenance area. They had a maintenance area down here. They would do all the work, replacing the things that people would peel the Mustang logos off. People would bang into things or they'd scratch the cars. They had a whole maintenance shop down below. And they would bring the cars in. If you go to the Henry Ford Museum, they have the records from the fair, and day by day they let you know how many of this they had to fix, how many of that they had to fix. But in one day, somebody made a mistake and they hit the button to go bring the elevator up, and the car was still halfway in and out of the elevator. And I guess they didn't have the right safety device, and it managed crushing the car. So they had to do a whole report on now why there's one less car on the Magic Skyway. It's not the sort of thing you think if you send a car to the Magic Skyway, it's going to have a road accident. Actually, when they opened the fair, they had a lot of road accidents because they were different weights and the cars would come down the hills at different speeds. And Bob Gurr tells a story how they went out and bought every baseball bat in the city of New York and stationed people through the tunnel. And as the cars were coming down at too high a rate of speed, they would throw a baseball bat out to, block it as it went over the motion wheel. Over time, they started realizing how we could do it, that we take some weight out of this car and put some weight in this car. So they were all now at the same weight, because that was the mistake they made. Was we took a Lincoln Continental and took the engine out, and you took a Mustang and took the engine out. They were not the same weight and they went at different speeds. They also found they had to be a little bit judicious in doing the loading of it, because if you put 6 very, very heavy people in a car, it rolled at a different rate than a car with 2 lightweight teenagers in it. So all the things you learn, that's why opening day, that's why Disney, we all do soft openings before you announce the great big thing. But that's what they learned in the fair, and opening days, you learn things.
But didn't Isaac Newton prove that everything would fall at the same speed regardless of its weight?
Yeah, the whole thing was to go with the same speed because you had the narration going on, and the narration was on an 8-track tape in the trunk, and it got triggered by certain places that you went. But that was the whole big thing on why. Well, there were 2 big things on why Walt wanted an automated system. One was they didn't want all the exhaust smells of cars with motors going through this. It would also be a safety factor of having gas-powered vehicles with flammable fuel inside a structure. But he also wanted to make sure that everybody went by at the exact pace that he wanted the show to go. So if you were supposed to see the T-Rexes for, 14 seconds, he didn't want it to be 12 seconds or, 18 seconds. He wanted it to be the exact amount of time so the show was consistent. But I don't know, again, we have some car enthusiasts. Maybe they can tell us what kind of cars these are. Brock is looking intently. Tailfin City there on the left.
Yeah, one is a Chrysler. The one on the left is a Chrysler. I'm not sure if I don't think that's a Plymouth. And then the middle one, I think, is a Ford. Oh, you mean up on the trackway?
No, no, down
Down the
below. I just thought you
Yeah.
might be able to pick him out. It was interesting. There's different people that have false memories of things. And somebody the other day posted a picture of the Ford Pavilion, and people, yeah, I got to ride in a Mustang. I got to do this, and somebody was, oh yeah, that was I still remember it vividly. It was a bright
That
gold
looks like
Pontiac.
a Chevy Nova on the right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So this person goes on
Chevy
got
Nova.
on the ride on a bright gold Pontiac, and we're trying to tell them there were no Pontiacs on the Ford ride. No, I remember it. You can't tell me I'm wrong. I remember it vividly. I was here with my mother. I know I had lunch that day. It's not worth arguing with him. Okay, somehow a Pontiac got up on the Ford Skyway. So
Yeah, the one on the left, I think, is a Dodge, actually. It might be the swept wing Dodge, they used to call it.
they're so different, aren't they?
Yeah.
Bill, why is there's an X on one of the trees? Is that a tree that is they're going to pull out?
I think that was a tree that they were going to keep. Oh, it could be that they were going to pull out. A lot of these trees were left from the 39 40 fair. Let's see which tree has the X on it.
The one in the
Right.
middle.
Right on the middle, yeah. The
Oh
kosher.
yeah, right here. They may have realized that by that point in time, this sucker is blocking the view. We got to take it out because they did do a survey. They took all the trees that were there at the site and they went tree by tree and decided go or stay. A lot of the ones that decided to go were actually not cut down. They were taken out, roots and all, put in pots and taken to the Queens Botanical Garden and stored there during the construction. And then after the fair was done, they put, actually the fair was built and none of them were put back in place. So this particular one, they may have realized that, we got a dead tree, or Ford might have said that's right in the view. We don't want it there. So
Yeah, the one on the right also has an X. The one,
Yeah, it looks
the
like
two on
right here,
either
too.
side of, yeah.
yeah,
That's true. Yeah.
so have to compare other pictures and see if it stayed or not. And we have a nice dusk view. I got a kick out of this one. Again, you can start dating these things. The escorter down here shows us that it's a 64 view, but just look how nice the fountains and everything look. When you go back there today, it's a whole different different thing. I mean, great that they're turning into or did the misting park or whatever, but it's still, these fountains survived from the 39 fair. They repurposed and did really well for 64. So
And
that's
one of the things I never noticed before is the big flagpoles. One has a US flag and one has a fair flag.
Yep. Yeah, these were the flagpoles left from the 39 fair. They originally were slightly different spots, but when they redid the Fountain of Nations out here, or Pool of Industry was later called, they moved the flagpoles. But those
Those were the poles. Those were the poles that had the German eagles on the top.
no, they're not German. They're American eagles, and they're of art design. I think they're called Bauhaus style, but they were American federal eagles up at the top. So there's a big urban myth that they were Nazi eagles put up there, but if you look at them really close, they're not. They're stylized American eagles from 39. That was one thing Mayor LaGuardia was absolutely emphatic about, was that Germany was not going to be at his fair in any shape, form, or fashion. So they did not show up there.
So were they even invited as at all?
For the 39 fair, I think they might have been invited early on, but once it became apparent what was going on with the invasion of all the countries, he didn't want any part of them. They didn't know at that time about the Dachaus or Auschwitzes or anything like that. But, just invading Poland and Czechoslovakia and things like that was enough for LaGuardia that he didn't want them there. And I frankly don't know if Germany would have come. They were probably spending all their money that they had on, buying more tanks or Stukas or things like that. But he went on record and very, very strong terms about not wanting that damn dictator, and he can't come to my town. So yeah, I'm sure they were invited, but
I'm sorry, it kind of begs the question as to why did like Belgium and France have and Britain have such large pavilions in 39 when the writing was kind of on the wall, what was going on right next door.
Part of it was fundraising. There was a whole big thing on, come on and see the exhibit. And Britain did things like they took a crashed German fighter and put it on display. And they were telling people, we need your help to keep fighting this menace. With some of them, I think they started thinking that things weren't going to get as bad as they did. Like Czechoslovakia started the 39 fair fully intending to participate. Well, by the time the fair got there, Czechoslovakia was under German rule. So the whole theme of the Czechoslovakian pavilion became help us reclaim our homeland, and big displays inside of tank battles and airplanes and atrocities and stuff. So I know that each of the international ones, England in particular, went out of their way to try to appeal to Americans to donate. They also had things at the 39 fair, and I don't remember the name of the organization that was raising money to buy ambulances. It was on the Court of Nations where all the smaller national pavilions were. And they had a whole thing about coming in and here your donations would go and buy one of these ambulances and we can send it over to war-torn Europe. So a lot of it was economic, raise money.
You notice at the bottom of the Ionosphere, it has a bronze glow to it.
Yeah, we're getting into daytime, turning into nighttime, so the sunlight changes. And this particular one down here at the bottom is the Caribbean Pavilion. Up top, obviously the Ionosphere. The moon is out way in the background out there. So on this particular,
Where was this taken from?
this would have been the Skyway, I believe. This would have been taken from the Skyway. So
That explains the tilt. I was saying these are such quote professional pictures, but it's tilted.
yeah, sometimes what I'll do is on these, Wayne, I'll do two versions. I'll do it as shot, and then I will go in and straighten it up for the tilt. Sometimes because some of them will get there, they're just way the hell out of line. Others are slightly, and it all depends how much time or effort I'm putting into it. What I was trying to look at this one side, what's going on over here, that there's so many people on this side of the Ionosphere and nobody's sitting down over here, but I cannot see if there's anything in particular. Just looks like everybody's standing around watching.
Notice to the right of the New York State Pavilion towers, to the right, see that reflection of something in the sky?
No, it's the moon.
No, scan down a little. If you scan down, you see that reflection right there, below the moon. Below the moon and to the right of the towers.
Left or right?
To the right of the towers.
Left or right up here?
Now you have to scan it down.
Down?
It's to the right of the New York State towers and just below the moon.
Right of the towers.
And below the moon, you see in the sky, it looks like a reflection of something in the sky.
No, it's three buildings going up in the background. It's hazy out, and then there's cranes
there it is.
building new apartment buildings in the back. So it's just
Yeah, there they are with the crane on.
What's it?
Yeah, you can see that with the crane. Looks like a crane and buildings under construction back there.
Right. Yeah. Few people up on the tower. The empty level that's always empty is empty again. You can almost see people over here at the VIP level. And again, zooming in through it. This one I thought was nice. It's got a nice view of the Africa Pavilion down below. Again, early in the fair because the brass rails are nice and clean. And if we zoom in, going over to the tower, some very lonely vending machines on this level that didn't get any use that I've ever seen. But everybody's coming up here to get a nice nighttime view of the fair. And look how great the tent of tomorrow looks with all the lights on there. This was before Joey came and helped himself and put them all in his backyard. But for the lights that he has, all the mold cast lights, that's how they looked when they were lit up. Night's getting a little later. The crowds are getting more around the Ionosphere here. Again, we're on the Skyway. Down below you have Indonesia. So we're here's the roof of Indonesia. Here's the two entrance towers. Then Spain off here to the side. but we can see the GE, carousel or progress land lights all lit up here. The fair, as I've mentioned before, is one of my favorite times. So many people have gone home, but the damn heat was gone, so it made it a lot more appealing to go around. Plus, the fireworks show was just spectacular every night. Even though the fair lost money and they realized early on they were losing money, I was never aware that they ever did anything to cut back on the fireworks. The show seemed as good in the end of '65 to me as it did in the beginning of '64. So I'm a big sucker for fireworks. We can tell this is not right after opening day though, and the clue here is the IBM Pavilion. If we zoom in on it, you can see they've got several of the letters lit up. I mentioned on an earlier talk how they had realized after the fair opened, nobody could tell at night what this was and they weren't getting any advertising value. So I've got pictures of scaffolds going up and they were chiseling out some of the IBM letters and putting in light up IBM letters. So at night, they got some bang for their buck. And we have NCR over to the side here, Coca-Cola, Modern Maturity. Down here is the Hong Kong Pavilion. It was a really wonderful spot at night.
It's almost hard to believe that it would have lost money. You know.
Yeah, well, it's like anything else. If you don't budget correctly and you spend like drunken sailors and you're absolutely convinced that you're going to get 70 million visitors, and then you only quote get 51, then you've got a huge problem on your hands. I mean, they did a great job doing this, but they really didn't take some things into account. Like one of the big things they did was they got all the money for all the ticket sales, all those books of tickets they would sell, and instead of $2, if you bought them in advance, they were $1.80, and they were getting everybody to buy it. And they had all that money sitting in the bank, a giant pot of it, and they just kept running back to that pot, taking money out, not realizing that you've got money now that's got to be stretched over 2 years. That if you spend all the money on, but they really went crazy with press gimmicks and giveaways and all sorts of stuff in the beginning of the fair. But you still got to be there for the second year, and you got to pay for the custodians and the water and everything else that you're going to do. And they did not do any projection of future expenses. They just looked at the money and spent it. Abe Beam, who was
Bill, we talked about it before. Very few World's Fairs have made money. So
yeah, very few. But Abe Beam, the controller, who really had a major hurt for Robert Moses, jumped in early and tried warning them that you guys can't do this. It's not sustainable. And Moses, being Moses, just wouldn't listen. He wouldn't listen to anybody for anything, but he hated Beam as much as Beam hated him. So it wasn't until all of a sudden the bankers started saying, it's going in the red, boys. You don't have any money left in the bank, that they started firing people and cutting back on things. But to their credit, the fireworks shows kept going. I always thought the flowers in the fair were really spectacular, even up again to the end, all the flowers that all the ladies were stealing in the final days. The site always looked pretty good. So
yeah, that's to their credit too. I went to Expo 2000 in Hanover, and I went towards the end of the run, probably the last month and a half or so, and they were losing money dramatically. I mean, they only got like 20 million visitors out of an expected 40 million. And the site was just filthy. Have cigarette butts all over the place, and just, not well maintained.
yeah, the '64 fair, the final week, like I've showed pictures of the last couple of days, and all the trash cans are overflowing. That's because they were getting incredible crowds. There was no way anybody could have kept up with it. But for the most part, like a shot like you look here, if we just zoom in on the avenue here, there's no trash. I mean, it's again early on, so they still had money to spend. But it's one of the things I noticed as I go through pictures. There's very little trash just lying out on the street or anything. They had enough of those people with those little street, sweeper things, going and picking it all up. And people also behave themselves generally better in '64 or '65. One of the things they did, you can see all along the road, trash cans. People tended to use them as opposed to, today you go to, like, I live across the street from a city park. There's trash cans all over the place. People go to McDonald's, they bring their McDonald's here and they throw it on the street, figuring that the trash ferry will take it away at night. People were just better behaved back then. Nighttime. People probably know it, but the lights here on the towers simulated the passage of time around the globe. So the globe would go into darkness and lightness to simulate the rotation of the Earth. And these, of course, are all the capitals of the various nations. I just so wish they still work today. And top the Indonesia pavilion again. So that's the end of that folder. Let's get to the next one. Again, these are all good sized transparencies.
Were they bigger than 127?
I'd have to remember that they were about, yeah, 127 is about what size?
I'd say like maybe inch and a half by inch and a half.
Oh yeah, these are about 2 by 2. They were all square, but about 2 inches. I'd have to go and check it, but I know I had a hell of a time finding poly pages to put them in. That they're very, very large, and they come on very heavy cardboard mounts on them. These are all mounted, and that interesting. So when I put them in the book, I turned the page, and they would slide out of the page. So I had to end up taping them all in the book. This one I got a real kick out of this whole series, and then they're over at the Spanish Pavilion doing the dancing. And some of these things you can see. This is obviously their equivalent of the prima donna from the opera or whatever. She's their big star. And I don't know if it shows on this one. I'll zoom in here on some of the faces. You can see. Well, she's not looking too haughty. Some of them are looking at her like, you bitch, that should be me. It's just interesting, but they're doing a great performance here. One hell of a dress.
What were these shows open to the general public, or did you have to be like
No, they
seated at
were
the
done
restaurant?
open to the general public. They were in the courtyard here, and they
Okay.
would do them several times a day. They would also invite, besides these people were probably pros doing it. They would invite Spanish school groups and from different schools and stuff to come in and perform and entertain there. I think I've got one picture where they dragged some poor guy out of the crowd, and they're trying to get him, with his hands over his head like this. But yeah, they did these. You can just see up here, there's part of a restaurant area. But down below in the background here, we just zoom in a little.
Yeah.
You can see people from the public are sitting over here watching and enjoying it. Then we did more dancing. We hop over to Mexico, and they would do the dance act down here. You had mariachis that came out, did dancing, and here's the pole that the acrobats would climb up. And again, you mentioned about hard to imagine to lose money. Yeah, it's a good sized crowd for some of these things. But it gets, again, you overspend, and they also had, when you had I guess it was 65, the drought was so bad, it was hotter than hell in New York. They tended to do really well in the beginning, really well at the end. In the middle, it was just kind of miserable to go to the fair. I can remember I mentioned we had a friend's sister worked at the Bell System, and she'd get us into the fair, and we'd go around, do things. And then in the middle of the day, we would either sit in the employee lounge at the Bell System, which we enjoyed because it was air conditioned. They had all the free soda you could drink, and you could make all the free phone calls you wanted. But we'd sit in there in the heat of the day, ride the Bell System Pavilion over and over and over until it was like, I don't want to ride it again. Today, of course, I'd kill to ride it again, but back then it was just, you'd go on it 5, 6, 7 times in a row, and then at night as the temperatures drop down, okay, now let's go see Ford, let's go see GM.
You know, Bill, in this picture versus the previous one from Spain, the dancers, it was only a couple, you can see a couple of men and the one woman, they're all smiling. Where like you said in that other one, it wasn't, there was a look, like you said, that was kind of like, I should be there instead of her,
Yeah,
but nobody seemed happy. I mean, if you
no,
looked at all the faces, they all seemed like, okay, we got to do this again.
yeah, yeah, that's very true. I mean, she's very haughty and she's doing her dance and she's very much in character and doing what she's supposed to be doing. But some of the others are just looking at her like, you know, what time do I get off?
Yeah, yeah, there's a, where these, you know, the girl here to the right is very, got a smile on her face. The guys seem to be very happy. So, you know,
Yeah, maybe they did less shows per day. Or, you know, maybe they're in that other show that was The Star. Here, everybody's doing it equally, so maybe that makes
yeah.
a difference as well. So we saw from the pavilion side looking out, now we're out looking in. So again, the all they had different dancers from different parts of the country doing different things. Real old dances and old costumes, and something more modern with the cowboy hats and everything here. And you can see I've got pictures that show it. The sign here looks like they're performing 5-6 times a day, saying when they're all going to be out. And they're done with the show. This little walkway that takes them off their platform there. Back up to take another tour on the Skyway. And again, this is where we just were. There's the platform, there's the little exit entrance ramp. There were 2 of them that they would come on. And no show, so nobody's all scattered around. The Astral Fountain, again, I love shots like this that show how big this thing was. Mentioned in earlier talks how they had to finally put a wind device in that would determine how tall to take the fountain, because when the fountain got all the way up to the top, which you could easily do up here, and the wind was blowing, the wind would tend to like make everything around here soaking wet and made it slippery. And the Fair Corporation was getting reports of falls, and they were getting worried about people getting hurt. So they put in a wind detector, and it would dial the fountain down dynamically depending on what the wind speeds were.
It looks like Paris has no, or France/Paris has no identifying mark on it.
Yeah, I've got on my site. That's interesting you mentioned that. Maybe I'll have to look more at this one. But they'll have changed the signage over here at various times to you know, be little letters, big letters. Yeah, that's thanks for catching that. I'm gonna have to stick this on my changes during the fair sign. You would know who that is over there, would you? So, all right, let me go and see what else we got here. So we're going to look at one more batch of these newspaper or magazine photos. The Greek Pavilion. And so, like I said, sometimes there's subtle changes between it. These 2 people looking at it, they're probably told there, stay there by the photographer and look at this thing. And these guys come along and happily photobomb it as they go walking through. The Tower of London, you could see real genuine, absolutely authentic recreations of the crown jewels. Sweden in the background. This again, I believe, was kind of early in the fair because people were wearing sweaters and coats, and some of them have hats on and stuff. Over here at Mexico with the Mayan calendar. Again, early, a nice shiny brass rail in the background. You can see again just minor differences as he's taking the shots through here. Nice shot of the Skyway, both sides of it going. On a light day, they would only run one side of it. On busy days, they would run both. They could also space out the cabins depending on what sort of load factor they have. I'm sure it's probably on my side or elsewhere, but I've always wondered how many of those cabins that there were. I mean, it was a big thing. Somebody asked the other day online how tall the Skyway was, because they said it looked pretty tall. And it was 1,300 feet. And that's pretty high up there. That's a good distance. So you definitely got a great view of the fair from up there.
Bill, in this picture, oh, you went to another one. To the left side, middle, roughly, there looks like an N in the sky. Was there a Skyrider maybe out riding?
Yeah, yeah, they would come by and do skywriting over the fair. I've got a whole bunch of them where they show they were trying to do copper tone, the sunscreen, and that might have been something here. That might have been finishing with copper tone or going on to do the E. But yeah, they would do skywriting over the fair quite a bit because the number of people, if you've got millions of people down below. The trouble is they could only do it off to one side. They couldn't do it right over the fairground itself because the flight path to LaGuardia. So a lot of the shots you don't have it like right here, be the prime space, but you don't want a constellation coming, through as you're doing your skywriting.
Although at the top, just above the light fixture there, it looks like what's the remains of possibly a letter, how they'll dissipate as they move through the sky. You've
It
got to
does.
go up there.
Yeah, I don't know if that's
If you go up
dissipating
above the
or-
light fixture, there it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, right up here. Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks
I don't
like
know if
that's-
that or a cloud or whatever, but yeah, it could be the letter O or something. My plane used to be equipped for skywriting, and on a windy day, you'd be spelling out something, and by the time you get to the last letters, the first letters would be just ancient history. So these people are still standing where he told them to stand. I hope they're not still there today. Hope they got paid off. Jordan, Austria over here in the background. Just again, people wearing hats and coats and looking like it's the beginning. The trees are also a little on the sparse side. And again, I mentioned the flowers. I thought they did a really nice job on them. One of the ones I was looking at yesterday, you could see, and I think we're going to see it today. People tended to walk on the grass a lot and just absolutely mash it into the ground. So they, over time, put little fences up and try to stop it from people doing it. But I think I mentioned my college roommate worked for the University of Texas at Austin, and he said that they would build a building and then not put all the lawns and everything in until they realized where the people were going to take their paths, and then they would put the pathways and the concrete in, because otherwise, if you had a nice concrete walkway going up to a building, but everybody was shortcutting it from the sidewalk across the grass onto the thing, maybe we better curve the sidewalk over there. So just interesting things you learn. Nice sign here. I don't know how much detail we'll be able to see online, but if you come down to Morocco, they've got their restaurant, their hours, and their list of food out here, and put the big tent you have back here. I've got other pictures of guys out here carving meat, and again, obviously posed two pretty young things are listening to him, just absolutely in rapture as he's carving meat. Look at all the skyways. It's just oh, down here, this was another thing they put in, a tea tent. Different editions show up at the fair at different times, but you could come out here and just like Japan had a tea ceremony, you could go into the Moroccan tea tent and they would serve you out here in a kind of informal environment. So let me go over to another area here. I was just working on some pictures. Every now and then I'll hear from somebody that says, hey, could you restore some pictures for me? And I generally say, no, I don't have the time to do it. But this one fellow, Ed Witowski, really helped me out a tremendous amount with my Seattle World's Fair book. And he had a bunch of pictures he wanted restored from the 64 fair. And I told him I'd be glad to do it for him. I have these written down that they were 4x6 transparency. Somebody else said it were they 4x5. And I said, I don't know, I've got to get back in touch with Ed. So, but they're really nice shots. Ed worked for a auction firm in New York, and somebody brought these in, and he ended up buying them from his own auction company. So these are not in my collection, but like I told Ed, I'd be glad to restore them for him. These were really tough to do in a way, because again, you can't do them on the Nikon scanner. They were the right size. They would fit in a holder on my Epson scanner. So what I generally did was I did 3 scans of each of these. One just with no correction turned on, one with the digital ice turned on, and one with the Epson dust removal turned on. And the Epson ones, generally the digital ice one does a pretty good job, but sometimes the Epson one does a better one. But then, as I mentioned in other talks, Epson will all of a sudden, if you have a ship, it will take out 2 portholes on the ship for no apparent reason. So in some cases, I would say, okay, I'm going to go with the Epson version. When I see a missing porthole, I'm going to clone that in from the digital ice version. So it took a while. And on each of these, I cleaned them by hand. I have a can. Matter of fact, I never get far away from my can of, see, hold here, compressed air that I clean these things off with. But it's amazing when you blow these things up to 12 times their size, how the dust shows up. It's kind of crazy. So we got the Fountain of the Sun, and I'm always glad they have this so I can determine that it's the sun and not the moon, because the bottom part looks pretty much the same. And speaking of the Fountain of the Moon, there we get a nice view of that. Some of these lights used to be at the Orange County Fairground in New York. They were relocated there after the fair. I think somebody told me they finally wore out, they're finally gone. But when I made my visit back there to take pictures of all the luminaires, it was just a real kick to come around and see these things again. Mentioned
Yeah.
earlier. Sorry, go ahead.
They're all gone now. We took a tour there. We brought Mitch and Stephanie there, and Stephanie wanted to see the those particular lights, and they were all gone now.
Yeah, no, that's a shame. Mentioned earlier how people will make their own paths, right? So you can put grass here. Obviously, in an ideal world, this would have had a pavilion on it. And, you know, if you go to the old site maps and everything, there would have been something with its name on it, but it didn't come to be. So they tried to put in some trees and some grass, but everybody decided rather than walk all the way around here, take this path up, come back around, we're just going to walk over here. So some of that stuff was, you know, just too hard on that. There were too many people that were hard on it. We're still doing construction, so we still have, you can see a temporary wooden structure up here. They were still lifting stuff up, plastic covering stuff up here, piles of dirt and debris, because not everything open. So the fair is open, Spain has got open, but not everything in Spain is open, because not everything in Spain is finished. So in different pictures, you just catch these random piles of boards and lumber and dirt and everything scattered around.
I saw 2 nuns in that picture,
Okay, where
right in the
are
middle,
in the middle?
right? Yeah, just above, yeah, very dead center. See them?
Oh yes, yeah, right here near the trash can. Yep, yeah, yep. They very
Well,
good
Bill,
eyes.
this picture would have been then pretty much near the beginning of the fair
Yeah.
because of the construction. It's
Right.
interesting that grass is all worn out already. I mean, you
Yeah.
know,
Well, again, it's early in the fair, so it's been very cold. So you wonder how much you even had a chance to you know, to mail call the dogs. A memento. Okay, okay. Oh, thank you. Carol's got him. Yeah, you wonder how much of it they had a chance to, you know, to actually grow or anything like that. But it'd be interesting. I'll have to go back and compare some other pictures. Did they finally sod this in? Did they put a walkway through? But yeah, very early in the fair, it's already very worn down, isn't it?
And it's interesting because that's how most of the park looks today.
Yeah.
It's all worn down from the soccer fields, and it's very rare to find like you know, a lot of grass that's
Right.
not torn up.
Bill, do you know if they originally laid sod or did they seed?
I believe they originally seeded. Sod pretty expensive.
I know at Expo 67 they did a lot of sodding. So if you look
Yes.
at some of the last minute pictures, they're still sodding some of the areas.
Yeah, we're gonna see
You
some
have to go
sodding
large open
under.
grassy areas like New York did.
Yeah, we're gonna see some sodding underway here in this particular batch of slides. It was
Yeah.
interesting when we were building Epcot. It was so down to the wire. Brock may remember some of this, that you would have people come by and they would say, "Okay, we're finally done with this area. I've got to get the sod in because it needs 2-3 days to latch in." They put the sod down. the next day they'd come in and somebody would have put a trench right through the sod. You know, I mean, because everybody had their own deadlines. You know, the guys that were putting in the utilities, they didn't care about the you know, the sod guys. That wasn't on their pie chart. So the gardeners were constantly going crazy at Epcot that oh, man, this looks great. I can go home tonight, I can relax. And the next day, oh my God, a ditch digger right through the middle of it.
Oh.
Yeah. So
So yeah,
I
just
wonder what the final sod budget was for Epcot.
yeah, I've noticed in you know that really great National Geographic map of the fair that was in a 1965 issue. A lot of those areas, like you showed there, that you know were designed to put a pavilion, but you know never got done. There are sidewalks, meandering sidewalks on a lot of them. Wonder if they did something, you know, during the
I
first
believe
season.
they did come and put them in because obviously that's pretty unsightly. And
Yeah.
again, just from a maintenance point of view, all these people tracking dirt and everything into all everybody's pavilion, just they did it. For example, I know one area in particular they did it was the line that was done for General Electric. When General Electric first opened, there was supposed to be a pavilion next to it, and luckily it wasn't built because they needed the space. But when they first put the crowd out into the overflow area, it was just dirt, and it looked just like this. Then all of a sudden it shows up with what you call it, asphalt and everything in there, a big semicircle where they could take people around. And then in '65 they added the covered shelters in for people. But that one particular area looked just like this at first, and then it got paved over for a waiting area. You also figure if it's raining, you know, you really want people standing around waiting in the mud, you know, or walking through here and bringing mud into everything else. So, but it is interesting, you know, that how you know, you can lay this out, you can work for years on it, but then when you open it, you go, gotcha. We have, again, going back to Epcot, same thing. We would argue with the people about the queue areas, and I remember Energy in particular, just saying, what do you mean we're not gonna have an outdoor queue area? No, the theater is so big, the pre-show is gonna hold everybody that could possibly wanna go. There's no need to put a queue area in outside. So thing opens and all of a sudden Energy broke down all the time. We're having a lot of issues with it. So everybody get on the line, and it would break down. You'd have to go back out and get on. The lines outside Energy were jammed, and you had two small doors, relatively small doorways to go through, and everybody just coming in and pushing and shoving. So all of a sudden, there's people with concrete drills drilling into the pavement to put the stanchions in that were all being stolen out of the Magic Kingdom theme park to bring over to Epcot. And in the Magic Kingdom, each of the things would have a little number on it, telling you it was, you know, like Fantasyland stanchion 27 and would connect to 28. All of a sudden, they're all over at Epcot because now everybody was going to Epcot. The Magic Kingdom crowds are down, but like I said, I can just remember people out there drilling holes and putting those things in. And we had how many years to design it, but no, we don't need it. Just like at Epcot, I remember being in a meeting saying, this thing is really, really big. And how are we going to get Grandma from the American Adventure out to the parking lot at night? You know, she's going to be tired. And I was trying to sell them an idea of putting in a people mover system with stations that were themed to the nations of World Showcase. I thought it'd be great to have a Paris Metro type station and a London Tube type station. No, it all costs too money. Grandma's just going to have to walk. Well, the park opened. Grandma couldn't make it, and they were now having to get company vehicles and drive all these ladies back there. So a call went out. They stole the Main Street double-deck buses off of Disneyland. I mean, because a friend of mine at that time was a supervisor on Main Street, and he came to work one morning, and the buses were gone. It's like, where the hell they go? They're not supposed to be down for maintenance. They were on a truck on their way to Florida, so they could take people from the end of World Showcase out to the beginning. Again, years and years and years to plan on this. You open it up, and the operations people, I think, Brock, when you say sometimes the operations people are not real happy with the designers.
Well, a lot of times though, some of that input came from the operations group,
Yeah,
you know, and so, you know, you say they've been running a park and they know stuff, but yeah, they were looking at stuff and saying, no, you know, we don't need this or we don't need that. It was a back and forth. Sometimes WDI blew it. Sometimes operations completely blew it.
yeah. Yeah. Of course, operations never admits it, right?
No, of course they're never wrong.
You know, it was interesting. Brock and I both belong to a Imagineering alumni group, and somebody was just we have a newsletter that comes out, and there was an interesting memories in there of the strike that Disneyland had, where all the hourly people went out, and they sent people down from the studio and from WED to go and operate the park. And one guy was going through the thing about he was working. I guess he got put in the Haunted Mansion. No, got stuck on the Pinocchio ride. It was yeah, and he was saying how when they went into it, they found there was some mechanisms that were supposed to transport things on the ride using a bicycle chain that had never been cleaned, never been lubricated, and was frozen in place. So besides just working in the ride, the guys from WED would all take their time to actually rejuvenate some of these effects that had died off. And he said he was very proud that when they left at the end of the strike, the park was in better shape than when they got there. And I can remember Tony Baxter going to the Haunted Mansion one day and just getting really upset that a bunch of the effects in the seance room were not working at all, because it was in there very carefully specified that this will be a 40-watt light bulb, this will be a 60-watt light bulb, this will be a 100-watt light bulb. And over the years, people just put in whatever light bulb was handy. So he actually had them shut down and take out all the light bulbs and put in all the light bulbs that matched the drawings, and to try to get the effects back in. So building it is one thing, keeping it alive is another, right?
Yeah.
Johnson Wax, the To Be Alive, big film hit, actually won a Academy Award. And excuse me 1 second, I'll be right with you. Hi, Charlene, my granddaughter. She's calling to say hi. I'm doing a Saturday talk, Charlene. Could you call Mom and say hi? All right, bye. Charlene is not quite 10 months old, so she doesn't understand my schedule, but she's really good with an iPhone. So anyway, the Golden Rondell Theater relocated to Wisconsin, and you can go see the movie there today. Again, things are real early, whether this is still during construction or not, but we can still see there's a truck driving down the road here. Let's see if we can see who he is. Rheingold. Okay, he's probably open. He's probably delivering some beer, but yeah, it's probably open here. This chair set up for a concert underneath here. A little Cushman scooter toting something along. Car hidden here in the shadows. I want to ask you to try to identify that one, Brock. That's probably a little tough. But look at all the luminaires. Aren't they just great? All the different colors and size and shape. There's somebody, by the way, on eBay is selling.
Actually, it is a Chrysler product.
Oh, you can
Can't
tell
tell you
that?
exactly which. Yeah, I can see the fin and the
Yeah.
tail lights.
Oh, wow. Isn't that cool?
Yeah,
Okay.
those fins are very distinctive.
Yeah.
All right. And what radio station were they listening to? Let's see how good you are.
What color is the upholstery?
I'm not familiar with the New York radio station. Sorry.
Oh, it's probably WMCA, WABC, WOR.
Bill,
But
did
The
you
arts
do-
are all K.
Yeah,
Did you
right.
do any color corrections on these or enhancements?
I try to call, yeah, some of these were very, very good and others were very, very red. It was interesting. They were in the same batch. This particular one, I don't remember having to do very much on. Is there anything that looks particularly off?
No, it's just, it's really nice. I mean, the colors are just so vibrant.
Yeah, what I generally try to do is I look for things that I know were white, okay? So the way the correction works in Photoshop, the tools that I use, you can do an automatic correction, then you can fine tune it. So you look for things that you know are white, like here, this trash thing here, or you look for things that are black, and say the shadows back here in the pavilion. So you try to adjust your white balance based on that. I also try to say the pavement here, you know, they call it blacktop, but it's not obviously black, you know, solid black. But when you do the scan of these, oftentimes for whatever reason, these roads show up very, very reddish or more orangish. And so again, I will come and try to use the color dropper and say, drop this down to a blacker tone, and you know, try to get it looking like, you know, real pavement looks. You get to the point at some of it where it's you know, purely an artistic decision. You know, is this really, these flags, were they exactly that red or exactly that blue? I don't know, but you know, I do know that these things were white. I do know that this telephone company truck was green, so I try to get it as close as they can, and sometimes you just say good enough. There's a
Yeah.
picture that's been posted online a lot of in the last couple of weeks. So that there's 164, 65 group. Somebody keeps posting a picture of what they're calling the Pontiac Firebird concept car, and it's like a bright purple. And no, the car was red at the fair, and it wasn't a Firebird; it was something else. But you know, with Photoshop, if you don't be careful with your restorations, you can end up making anything you want. And then now that it gets out, one person publishes it, another person publishes it, and another person publishes it, and other people are yelling, no, 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 it was really, really red. No, not, it's purple. And there were no purple concept cars.
Bill, in this picture, that lawn area there, it looks
Yeah.
like that was a sodded lawn. You can see the pattern to it.
Yeah,
So they probably planted it in the winter or maybe late fall of the year before, depending on when this area was completed. And you know, like you say, it's you know, park's opening, and some of this didn't make it through the winter, obviously down in the lower corner there. But you can definitely see the pattern. So it's still early on from the point it was originally planted.
yeah, it's interesting to wonder, you know, did they not have enough sprinklers hitting this area, or you know, what took this particular area out? But the corners definitely seem to have some troubles.
Yeah.
The New York telephone truck, it's great fun. I was mentioning earlier, there's a guy on eBay selling a bunch of luminaires, and he's been selling like 6 cube ones for around $2,000. He's actually got several 11 cube ones that are very, very big, and he's not restoring those. He's selling those as kits. But if you're in the mood to put one in your yard, go on eBay. There's several for sale right now. But keep in mind that these cubes here are, I think each of them are something like 18 inches or 24 inches. So if you have 2 feet, 2 feet, you got 6 feet right here. You take that out to an 11 cube luminaire, you better have a big backyard. And these poles also, he's selling them, I believe, without the poles, but they're very big. But if you do want a luminaire, and he also does sell single cubes. I don't know where he got them all, I think from the Poconos and some other places. But if you want a single cube that you just want to use to sit on a table in your house or apartment to light up the room, you can buy a single cube. So and the work he does looks really nice. He's posted some videos of him drilling out rusted screws and doing all sorts of things, and looks pretty good. Here's the flag back here. Let's just zoom in this a little bit. We move over here. Again, here's the eagle. I could understand why it gets a reputation for being a Nazi eagle, but again, it was a United States stylized eagle from the art movements of the 1930s. Back here. Again, sometimes I mention things are very close. Okay. Hawaii. In this particular one, this is a construction shot. If you look over here to the side, they're carrying a bunch of letters and putting the final touches on this hut out here. And this hut hasn't had anything put on it. It's going to be thatched roof and put in. And you can see again all sorts of construction, you know, stuff just sitting around. And but it's getting close. The fair will be here soon. More cranes and everything in the background. Oh, all of a sudden I have a desire to go get a Pepsi. So, like I said, these slides are great. They have all sorts of details in them. Randy, were you putting up your hand?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I just here's one for Rob. This is the American Express Pavilion, the model over there. Again, just great detail. And it's such a shame that this thing got broken up and wasn't distributed to, you know, I mean, the piece that's distributed wasn't put in some museum and saved over time. It would have been a really wonderful thing. But just all sorts of details on it. Again, we go up to the lake amusement area. They've got the Santa Maria out on the lake. They have, I don't know if they're amphibicars, but other boats out here. It was just a really great thing. Early on, there was plans out here for an American Indian pavilion. This ended up later becoming where the carousel was. So that again, they put things in to fill in. But you know, just to look at all the details, just how many arches it took to put around that monorail track that goes around. So it, like I said, I just looked at this one and really enjoyed it. Now, some things are interesting. the Kodak Pavilion here does not match the Kodak Pavilion. The tower was done differently here. So at different times, they would update the models, but at some points in time, the people, you know, the budget people probably said enough's enough. So we're just gonna go, this is close enough to what we actually gonna build. But instead of this big white tower and the slides are 2 levels, it's, I don't know if we can zoom in anymore and see it.
How large is that model, Bill? How large is that?
I had it's listed online. I don't remember, if somebody wants to look it up, if you go to the Amex page on my website, it does list the size of it. I don't want to get it wrong, but it was a very large size model. And
Bill, going down into where Sinclair is,
mhm,
was Lowenbrow, was it, Lowenbrow was next to it, right, eventually?
yes.
Was that a late edition?
Yes, yeah, it's actually, I think they were planning to be for there for a while, but my understanding was they were still having issues coming up with their design. So in some cases, you can see things like little signage. We're going to have something here, but the model, it has been updated, and other areas are just you know, left totally empty here. So you know, and like over here, you know, you get the New York City Pavilion, you know, just big empty areas. Well, even here, Westing, no, I'm sorry, not Wyoming, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
They had other things that they added into it, additional barbecue area and stuff. So they didn't always update everything, but I'm just in awe of how much effort, just all the little flagpoles along the you know, the nation here, the Court of Nations, Court of States. And I wondered, you can't tell from here, did they just put little colored things, or did they actually put the actual flags to match what they want? They also put little cars out on the highway. This one here, let's see, with this would have been Illinois.
New Mexico?
Yeah, New Mexico. I'm trying to see well, up here, I guess we get what you call it, Hollywood. So, but yeah, New York, Long Island Pavilion. This was all done with the tents, and there's the little kiosk that they had there. And even down at the bottom, you had the administration building. And this one's not labeled, it's kind of dark, so it takes your eyes off it, but this was a maintenance building where they did all the maintenance on the World's Fair vehicles. They even put that on there. And then you have the Sawtooth building. The train yards are here, but they didn't put any of that in. And everybody coming in from the Passerelle and coming into the fair. So yeah, like I said, and they
Bill,
have,
on the Passerelle, aren't those canopies are different, aren't they, than what was built?
no, I think we're seeing the front of a triangle, the front of a triangle. I think maybe they didn't go down in the, yeah, maybe they were just up and, yeah, I guess you're right. They were
Yeah.
triangular, but they didn't go down like that, like they
More
showed.
like the Sawtooth building, more
Right.
just, yeah.
Yeah. And it's just so you know, you are here. We're at the American Express Pavilion. So yeah, like I said, it's to me, I you know, looked at it and just look at it and look at it. What was interesting was when they were taking out some of the pavilions over time, they would lift them off the model. And I mentioned Mike Pender, who worked at the fair, was a real pack rat. He would take home these models and give it to his kids to play with. And John Pender has since sold off a number of them, but they were made of lightweight styrene plastic. And you know, again, John would talk about how he and his brothers would take these home and play, you know, with little plastic army men and invading, you know, these towns and everything. And all because Mike had the foresight to take them home. Nice one of Sudan. What's interesting is this dome lit up at night, and I don't remember if it's this batch or others, but it really gave it a very nice. You wouldn't know that this was translucent during the daytime, but it really showed up nicely at night. Here's the Carousel of Progress and the Tower of Light, New York State, Johnson Wax. This was one, talk about things at an angle. This was shot at about probably a 10, 12 degree angle. And I took this one and brought it back down to an even keel. It's kind of interesting trying to figure out how the photographer is a pro. He's doing all this and he gets so many things right. And then why did one shot end up at a 12 degree angle? But just a great view of the fountains, the Pool of Nation, or Pool of Industry it was called, just reflecting everything back onto it. Great shot of the Sikorsky coming in the land up at the Port Authority. Again, don't know if this was during the preview days of the fair or anything, but you notice there's no people wandering around. If we zoom in on it, I think, I don't remember, no, it's other shots, there's some maintenance guys walking around and doing work, but there's no people in this particular one. But there's the Chrysler conveyor ride.
Actually, there were a couple of people over to the right side, I thought.
Yeah, I can't see too
In
much.
gray.
Right, I see all you people up
Right there. Okay,
Yeah.
stop
Are
right
they
there.
over here working?
Yeah, they're the two round light fixtures, the ones to the right of the whole grouping, just above them. There's some
Yeah.
people.
I can't see them. I thought I remembered it. Like I said, I'm looking. If I look over that way, I see Irv and Randy. So
And then there's a guy all the way over to the complete right of the picture, about 1/3 way up.
Yeah, the
Okay.
guy with- Yeah,
In a
slack.
short sleeve,
Short sleeve
slacks and a
shirt,
short
yeah.
sleeve shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, there's someone on the heliport roof too.
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yep, yep.
Isn't it great the details you can pull out of these things?
It's amazing.
This one I found interesting. Tower of Light, and again, there's a couple people over here there's two people using the Serpentine phone booths. But if I go in on this one, the Tower of Light was temporarily closed, and you wonder, why, how often it was temporarily closed, that they actually had a sign made for it. Or I was wondering if this was one of the things that wasn't quite ready for opening day, so they put that up there. But it was interesting that over time, I have this on my changes during the World's Fair sign. They had some verbiage up here, and I don't remember what it was that evidently somebody objected to, because all of a sudden it was gone. But this is the only time I can remember seeing this temporarily closed sign on the pavilion. So
If you drop down to the bottom, it looks like the landscape in front is not complete. Like there was a lot of dirt. See
Yeah,
that?
just-
Or no, it's just been planted. It looks like there's newly planted.
yeah, certainly not. And these planters here had nothing showing in them. But
Yeah.
two guys. He's just standing here, and this one looks like they're making a phone call. So
And you still got X's on the plate glass too. See the X's on the plate glass? At
Yeah.
the top of the escalator.
yeah, right. Actually, I think that's reflections of the kinetic sculpture. I don't think that's X's on the glass. I think it wasn't kinetic;
Oh.
it did move, but this tensile structure, I think that's what it's
Oh,
reflecting back to.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, it looks like there's somebody inside the building to the leftmost picture window there. I
Could
see a
be.
head and shoulders, but I'm not sure.
I get a real kick out of this one because Avenue of Commerce, I own one of those signs, and again, came from Mike Pender. When the fair was coming down, they said, we're gonna throw all this stuff away, who needs it? Mike took all the stuff home and stuck it in his garage on Long Island for 30 years. And then when it was time to move down to Florida, John said, oh, what are we taking all this stuff for, Dad? And John gave me a very nice deal on my own official Genuine Avenue of Commerce sign. So I'm very glad to have that. But again, this stuff will all end up in landfills, and that's why it's so, Mike Pender was one of the last people to leave the fair. He worked a lot on the shutdown of it. He was in charge of the state exhibits. So if he had been one of the first people to leave, all this stuff would be in a landfill somewhere. Luckily now it's sitting in my family room. Indonesia, back when it was open, 65, of course, it's all horses and keeping it closed. Fair's probably not open because there's nothing going the Skyway. Here's one of the large luminaires. Again, if you want to get one of these for your backyard, or if you have a really good living room, I guess you could put it in there. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cubes on a side. So again, 10. Yeah, this is probably about the size of the luminaires that the guy is selling now. As he said, shipping will be expensive. Bell system. Again, if it was a hot day, I was probably down here in the basement having a Coke. Monorail, great shot here. This one I got a real kick out of. If we zoom in here, remember, these things are totally automated, right? And this poor guy is like, get me the hell out of here. You know, he's all up there by himself, and he's probably looking at the photographer. You know, everything. It's still in the station, so you could probably get in and out. But they put a hostess on here because people were just scared to death of being on a totally automated monorail. And it had a control panel in the front that did absolutely nothing, but you could push the button and it would blow a horn. Yeah, as I was restoring this, I just got a kick out of him, you know, up there looking back out. And, you know, it reminded me of when we were testing Space Mountain at Disneyland for one of the very first rides we went on it. We got on it, got up to the first turn, and the damn thing jammed. And we were up there, and I had a very heavy guy in the uphill side of me that was pushing me down. But we realized, oh my God, we're up here, we're stuck here, and nobody knows we're up here. It was about 15 minutes before somebody finally came. Are you guys up there? Is everything okay? So I was thinking, you know, you get in this thing and somebody in the control room pushes the button, off you go. But again, we just go down to the bottom here. This is the headquarters building AMF built. They were really, really hoping to sell a lot of these monorail systems around the country, around the world. So they had besides their operations there, they had a very, very nice VIP lounge that they would bring people and wine and dine with catered dinners to try to say you'd really like to put one of these in your towns. Arlington Hat, very austere sort of thing. As the fair got open, the board would here have signage on it about hats and that sort of thing, but not open. This one I really got
Wasn't AMF known for making the bowling pin
bowling
reset
alleys.
machines?
Yep. Yeah, American Machine and Foundry Company, I believe it was called. They were really big in the
Yeah,
bowling
yeah.
alleys, and they did other stuff. But they had really, they bet the farm. They really thought monorails were going to be a big thing. This was a hanging monorail. Obviously, the Disneyland one is above the ground, above the rail. But this was basically a system that had been pioneered in Europe and was being used over there. So they kind of got the rights to it, did their own engineering twists on it, and they were going to license it all across the United States. And it did not pan out. For whatever reason, monorails have still not caught on here as mass transit. I mean, you go to Japan, you can ride a monorail real easy. You go to a whole bunch of places, you can find monorails, just not here. Now, this one I got a real kick out of. The fireworks show I mentioned is underway. But if you look and you start zooming in on this particular one, the fair is very much still under construction. You still have construction trailers back there. Down, if you look through the Unisphere, you can see all sorts of cars and everything going, you know, parked down here. Cranes all over the place being done. Here's the flagpole again. Down below, here's the City of New York building, these glass tiles on it. And then down below, you can see there's still paving, two little steamrollers. You don't see steamrollers much these days, do you anymore? I mean, like when they pave in our town, I guess they have some of them that do it, but nothing like this. But in this particular case, just as you had to do a soft run through and make sure that your Ford cars would go through your Magic Skyway, you want to do a preview of your fireworks show to make sure that it all works and the music's going to synchronize to the sound and the launcher system works. So sometime before opening day, and again, look at all the cranes out here. They're still working away and they're out blasting the sky. I just thought that was a really unique view. And the Fountain of the Planets doing the fireworks. Again, this one's a little blurry. This sort of thing you need to definitely get a tripod shot on.
And didn't the residents complain about the smoke and noise of the fireworks every night?
Yeah, I'm sure the people living around there were not so happy. I know the ones that live around Anaheim aren't so happy, but you know, I guess it comes under the general category. Too bad. We're gonna go have fun.
I know. Yeah, I know people complained in the Main Street Flushing area that there was no parking.
Everybody would come and watch fireworks.
Yeah, well, people would watch the fireworks, but also it was just people were taking, you know, they were parking in people's driveways. They were, you know, doing all sorts of stuff on the perimeter.
Yeah, that way you don't have to deal with the parking lot. You don't have to pay for the parking lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to see the fireworks.
Yeah. Well, this one's a great one because the tower light is lit up. You can see if I zoom in, shows a little bit better. You can see the million candle power beam of light stretching up into the air.
Weren't they asked to dim that down because of the proximity to the LaGuardia Airport?
No, basically it was planned and located enough that it was going to be off to the side, so it wasn't going to be a real issue. It was also vertical. When they had the 39 fair, they did have some problems because they had a lot of lights that were going at angles to show things and trying to do lights up in the sky, and they had to tone that down. One of the things they were asked to do was to tone down all the pavilions around the uh, uh, perimeter of the fountain area here were asked to turn their lights down at night to, and that was something that they did after the fair opened, but could you turn off all the street lights that were out here and could you turn down the lights of your pavilions? So I have shots of the Carousel of Progress, the light going, the roof going dark during the fireworks show, because again, they wanted to get everybody to focus out here. And again, that's a sort of operational thing that, not poking fun at the designers, you build it and you have really no way of estimating how bright everything is going to be until it's actually out there in operation. So here's one for the sod fans. There, again, the GE or GM pavilion is being built. If we go and we zoom in here, we can see that the name is not up. The sign, the pillars are up to put General Motors up there, but it's 34 degrees. It's a pretty chilly day, and they're out
Look at
here.
those wooden walkways up the grass incline.
No, they're not putting walkways.
You
These
see
are
the wooden
temporary
walkways
things
up
that
grass
the
incline?
solders are on, that they put steps up here so that he's got a lawnmower or something
Yeah, they're
up
temporary.
here. Here, the guy's got the hose and they're all trying to get the grass and everything in here. So here's one of the little temporary things. So these were all ripped out, as the fair opened. But, look down here, there's still.
That's actually a tamper that guy's using.
Is
It
that what
goes
he's using,
along and
tamper to
it
push
helps
it
push
down?
the grass down. Yeah, it's
Okay.
kind of a tamp, but it was a machine. It vibrated. It would
Right.
vibrate and you
Yeah.
push it along like a sled almost.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, how do you mow an incline like that?
Yeah, very carefully. It's actually interesting because in some places today, you see the hills near where Carol and I live, people have this behind their house. House will be up here, a street down here, and the gardeners have to tie a rope and then, keep that for having the mower come all the way down. The Getty, where Carol works, has a very different solution. They bring in flocks of goats and they let them walk up and down the hills and just eat all the grass.
Yeah,
But look at all
seriously.
this debris still out there. I mean, this is right off the highway, right? So, let's just leave
Yeah.
this and drum and all these pipes. Look at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad that you showed this shot. The wall to the left is what we call the legacy wall,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still intact. And it is technically, a little bit further up. Well, that's some nice piping out there too. But technically, it's the last remaining remnant of the Futurama. It was built as a retaining wall. It still has a little bit of a futuristic design to it. And I have really big news for everyone. We just did a survey, and I'll be revealing what we found on the legacy wall.
Oh, neat.
What I can photograph safely, because it's impossible to get down to the highway level. The highway has been stretched so that it's flush with the walls, so that you
Right.
can't even pull over. So, but I'll be doing a show soon for you, Bill, and I'll show you some photos of what we found there.
Great. Now, admit it, Joey, how many of these pipes do you have?
All of them.
Not too many. When my father was alive, he would have said, put a couple in the trunk.
Put them on the handlebars of the bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the way Joey said, some really nice pipes. I can see he wants them.
Yeah.
This one I enjoyed. You don't get many views of the dinosaur, the Brontosaurus, up at the rooftop level. I do have some shots where they brought people up, and they're obviously in a VIP tour, and they're getting a view of it. But you get a nice view of him. If we go and
Yeah.
look way in the background, you can still see all sorts of scaffolding as the US Pavilion was being built back here. So this is where they're putting in all the plastic wall. But yeah, the dinosaur looks
Tom
very
said,
staid,
Tom
very
said those
quiet.
pipes are cast iron.
What's that?
Tom said the pipes are cast iron. They look like terracotta. Are they terracotta pipes or cast iron?
Oh, the other ones, the pipes.
Yeah. Tom
These
thought they were
things-
cast iron.
I am not a
Well,
pipeologist.
they might be terracotta because there's a lot of terracotta remnants that are coming up out of the ground these days.
Just by the color of them, I think they're
Yeah.
terracotta.
They could
Could
be,
be.
yeah. That sloping wall is still there, but it's so covered over with trees planted post fair and garbage. But I'll relay the story to you. I tried to get as close to it as I could, without getting hit by a truck.
Mm-hmm. Oh, one other
So
thing
it's
on
a-
this thing gives us a nice view. This is the VIP lounge and offices for the fair. I believe these are the offices, and here is the
Yeah.
VIP lounge for General Motors. So they sit here and look out across the Grand Central over at the main fairground and get a great view towards the Unisphere and that. But yeah, General Motors, okay. It's
34 degrees
sort of
or
the heck
at
out of
times
interesting.
3:46.
I would have just put up brackets that would have been the same for every letter, but obviously a T is a different shape than an O. So, all right, this one I got a real kick out of, and fun with a telephoto lens. The rocket thrower, so much of classic World's Fair. The rocket thrower, the Unisphere, the Skyway. It just. I love looking at it, what you could do if you have a really good lens. I mean, so many of the pictures are, I had my Uncle Steve's camera, and as he handed them down, I've mentioned before, he would always tell my aunt on,
He's
what,
trying to pull the
a
cable
new
car off the
camera?
cable.
Yeah, I had to give the old one to Bill. But so many of the
Yes,
pictures were done with cheap plastic lenses. So when you actually have one with good glass on it, you get some really nice shots.
He's trying to yank the cable car off the cable.
What's that?
He's trying to yank the cable car off the cable.
Oh, yeah. And this one's kind of interesting. Again, we have the Court of Nations here. And you can't really see it too well, but there's a little thing down here at each flag that would tell you what they were looking at. They later ended up putting signs on the flagpoles because it was a lot easier to see that than if anybody was standing here where the things were painted on the curb.
There's a nun at the dead center of the base of the Unisphere.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, she is.
This
Well,
would
show
make
there.
it. This
It's just
would make a really evil jigsaw puzzle with all that blank sky.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, so many of these days, whether it was the wind or anything, it seems like the sky in New York was always blue. It's either blue or gray, but you don't see a lot of clouds. Some days it was very gray and gloomy and overcast, and other days like this, bright and sunny. But you don't see a lot of it with clouds. Like here's another one. I mean, you'd swear maybe this is why they were having such a drought problem in New York during that period of time because there were no clouds.
No wind
So,
either.
Again, the New York State Pavilion at its prime, and just looking at, again, I look at all the details, the little flagpole descriptions. So we look down at the bottom, you can see the little placards down here telling you where they are, that they later moved up here. Fair is open, everybody's online and going to the forward. This was one that was basically bright. The whole roadway and everything looked about the color as the empty medians here. So I had to do some masking and changing and to get things around. But let's let Brock.
Is that a long line of people around the building? Still the people?
Long line. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Brock, what cars do we have here?
Okay, the head of the red one, the white car, is a Ford Fairlane
Okay.
that had a similar look to it as the Thunderbird
Galaxy.
did, but not really. It was a similar styling, but it was the Fairlane.
not
I'm
a
trying to
Galaxy.
tell. That looks like a Pontiac on the left far side. It looks like a Pontiac or an Oldsmobile. I'm not, those older ones, there was some similarities in them, so it was always hard to, unless you can get another photo to compare it to. And I think this one across from the Ford Fairlane might be a Mercury. Anyway,
Lots of
that's
empty
enough.
road. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Ford Pavilion did a bang up business. By the way, down here is the little booth where you came and you got your glow in the dark badge. If you got online here, here's where they would put the pillars out with the latest cars, generally a Mustang when that became real popular. Outside along here, they had all sorts of things like Ford tractors and other material. But even though Walt had done his best to provide a big pre-show area inside, this whole area here, the Wonder Rotunda, was basically full of Ford cars and pre-show stuff and keep you busy with the International Village. It still did even better business than they anticipated. So lines like this all the way back here to the bridge are not at all uncommon.
Don't you think they could have got more people through the building if they had a continuous row of moving seats like you had in Bell Telephone?
Well, yeah, I mean, you could have done that, but the whole issue was Ford wanted you to be in a Ford car.
Look at that car, you only get 4 to 6 people.
They had done Ford cars at the 34 World's Fair. They had done Ford cars at the 39 World's Fair. So their
You see
one
the
design
space-
element they told Walt was non-negotiable was you had to be in a car.
Yeah, but you look at the spacing between the cars, you only have 4 to 6 people per car. That's a lot of lost seating you could have had.
Yeah, but also
Yeah.
think about it. If you filled that all up with cars, how many, they had to spend a fair amount of money on these cars as it was. If you had to fill this up with things that were, car after car after car, they also wanted to give the impression of driving. I mean, you could have put a car with a chain, with a chain, with a chain, and just gone all the way by. But they wanted everybody to get the impression you're in a car, you're having a nice drive out into the countryside, and let's go visit the dinosaurs. They could have gotten more people through it, but it would have greatly increased the expense for them to do that.
Bill, what was the load unload area like? Was it a belt that you got on and then got into the cars, or did they actually stop them?
No, it was a continuous thing. I showed yesterday in the talk that I did. It was the first continuous belt loading that Disney had done. Out on the back lot where the lagoon was for Lieutenant Robinson Crusoe, they built a whole prototype of it. In the movie I showed, John Hench is out there, and they wanted to demonstrate to Ford that this would work because nobody had seen anybody do it. How do you get somebody standing in a line to step onto a car moving at whatever 3 miles an hour? So they built a concept facility out in the back lot of the studio. And they had about 12 Fords out there. And they were also testing the drive mechanism, the wheels and the steering mechanism. But they show John's all immaculately dressed as John always was. And they show everybody standing in line, and then they take a gingerly step onto the moving platform. They get into the car, and it's the exact same system that's used at the Haunted Mansion today.
Right.
So, but the Ford Pavilion was Disney's first foray into that and proved that
Bill, can you back up, Bill, just for a second, back to the wall underneath Futurama? I just want to get a shot of it off the screen here, and I'll use it for my show. The other thing, you can go back to the Ford. The interesting thing about this photo is that I have lots of fair footage, and people used to just walk in between. They used to walk on the dirt, on the median, and they used to ride their bikes too. And it's incredible to see that, because if you look at the Grand Central today, there's no way you can even think about doing anything like that.
Yeah, they had the problem when the parking lots filled up. People thought, I'm just going to park here and go walking into the fair. And there was no gate or any way for them to do that. So I don't know where these people that parked here on the medians would walk to and how they would finally get anywhere. But the police department would come by and just start towing people away like mad for doing it. But yeah, dangerous as hell. I mean, and again,
dangerous, very dangerous. They finally, like I said, they extended the highway so that it's flush with both sides, and there's really no place there's no place to pull over, even if you were in trouble.
Even back then, say you parked here and you walk, how do you get from here up to here?
Yeah.
I guess you look
There's a
at it,
hole in
you
the
go,
fence.
okay, here's the
Make a
low
hole
part
in
of the fence, but the fence is pretty significant. I can't see
Yeah,
grandma
fence is
climbing
pretty
over the
high.
fence. Yeah,
Somebody cut a hole in the fence.
there
Yeah.
were actually a couple spots where they found out, and Bruce Mentone, a fellow on World's Fair Group, and others mentioned they had found a few spots where this bridge obviously was all inside the fair, but they found some bridges outside the fair where you could walk across there was a fence and you could jump off the bridge onto the fence and climb your way back down. And then people, it's always funny. And then people said, well, how'd you go home at night? Did you climb back up? And he goes, no, I just walked out the exit. But in a couple of spots, they did make the mistake. You could get from a bridge to the top level of the fence and just climb down it. So I didn't know that. I paid my admission, or I got somebody to talk me in. This
Does
was
any of you who attended the fair, going back to that Ford slide? Okay, we see that how long that line is. How long do you think the people at the end of that line had to wait?
probably a good 2 hours.
2 hours.
Yeah. I've never seen a sign that gave the waiting time for Ford, but the waiting sign for General Electric at times would say 3.5 hours.
Hmm.
And you've been to other fairs, you know how long the lines can get for some of them, but
Oh, yeah, and in Shanghai, there were 9-hour lines.
yeah. So the
9.
fair here is probably the first time they did a fast pass type system. IBM was getting so overwhelmed with people that were lining up for the pavilion that they put in a thing. You could come very early in the morning and they would give you a ticket to come back later in the afternoon to try to spread out the crowds. I mean, because it was a very popular thing. People would run right there. And it was filling up all the pre-show, and there was no place for anybody to go under the giant tent they had done. So they came up with the concept of running in, giving out. A lot of the pavilions also gave VIP passes to employees and to stockholders that if the fair opened, because they generally would open the fairgrounds, a bit earlier than the pavilions. Because again, you don't want to open the gates and have everybody running all the way back to the pavilions, and the pavilions sitting there empty for the first half hour or so. So it would let people come in and get online, but you could get a ticket and you could say go to Ford 1 hour early if you were a Ford employee or a Ford stockholder, that sort of thing. So I've got a number of those early admission passes, particularly to GM. I've got a number of those. Speaking of GM, this was one I really liked. This slide, I was really happy how this turned out because this was bright red. It was just all shot and the colors had gone. And that's so weird because these are all done on seemingly the same stock, stored at the same time. Why does one go wackadoodle when the other doesn't? But General Motors had this facade, giant sweeping wing, which Doug Drexler copied for the design of Starfleet Command in San Francisco. And they were very subtle. You can see how you had the blue lights, the more purplish lights in the center, and they were all just shining up again from the spotlights down below. If we zoom in on this, again, it's still construction time. There's cars all over the place, scaffolds underway, again, testing all this stuff and getting this all done. But and of course, there's no leaves on any of the trees. It's very early, but I was very happy how that particular one came out. And if you look at pictures, because I've got a couple where people took them very rapidly, you have totally different color schemes going across the General Motors facade in just mere minutes apart. So again, I enjoyed that one.
Bill, what did those windows in the front there? What was behind that?
That was another VIP type area in here.
I think from the ride, you could actually see out through those windows.
Maybe for the General Motors ride?
Yeah, you could see out through the windows in the beginning of the ride.
I don't remember that, but I'll take your word for it. Another photo shot.
One of the thoughts that just popped into my head is how early were the luminaires installed because they're in all these pictures that are still during construction.
They seem to have gone in about a good year in advance, Wayne. As I look through construction shots of the fair, there's some of them where it's very early construction and the luminaires have been put in place. So I don't know if they did that just to get them up and out of the way, or they did it to provide, lighting for the site while it was under construction, but they seem to go in fairly early. This one I really enjoyed. Again, what you can do with a telephoto lens. I posted this and then somebody posted a today view. Very barren, the fountains are all empty. It just looks so sad and forlorn today. But in this particular one, really, just so much going on. I just loved all the fountains and everything. And the New York State Pavilion, you can see, New York City Pavilion, Dick Button's Ice Extravaganza was still resident there. The trees have grown out a bit. As I look around, I can almost smell the Greyhound bus going by. But just great detail that you can pull out of these things. I mean, look at how much, you can see is the rocket thrower. One I just did last night.
Bill, you might have mentioned while I was gone, I had to meet an electrician. Do you know what kind of film stock these are on?
No, again, I scanned these for Ed and I gave them back to him and I did not make note of what they were. I have them written down as 4x6. Somebody else said probably 4x5, but they were probably some Kodak stock. It was probably on the edge of it and I don't recall. What I do recall is that they were very thick. In other words, they didn't flop around and bend very easily as I was putting them in the holder on the Epson scanner. So they were not flimsy. They were substantial, I recall. Now, again, I did these. I think when we get down to the bottom here, we'll show the date. The last one is not restored. So, but I think I scanned these in 2014. So, again, I don't recall exactly.
You could see a helicopter through the Unisphere there. I just noticed it.
Yes, yeah, back in the background, the Sikorsky coming in the land there on the I noticed that too. So the fair is fairly long in this one because the Belgian Village is looking like it's actually finished and the lights are on, so it may actually be open. Nice shot though, again, the reflection out there. When I was going to clean this up, again, it does a pretty good job of picking up dirt and that sort of stuff. But there was all sorts of stuff here, and we'll zoom in on it. And I was trying to figure out, oh, what's going on? Well, I realized this is just gunk floating in the pond. Because when the dirt's there, it usually has a very sharp, defined edge to it. And this was just, whatever algae or stuff was in there. So I decided I would leave all the algae and leave it there for posterity. Well, if we go to the, and again, this is how this whole batch of slides all flips all over the place. We have this tower here all nice and finished, right? Well, here's the tower being built. So again, whoever took these at whatever period of time and how they got all sorted or jumbled together, there's no rhyme or reason. Mentioned here, you can put sod in, you can do anything you want. You can put this nice and green, but people say, I want to get from here to there. I'm not going to walk down to the path. I'm just going to trample across it. So over time, the fair, like I said, put little not little chain link fences, little chains between pilings to try to keep people from walking on some of these things. In some cases, they put them in and they worked. In a couple of places, they took them back out because they were getting complaints. People were tripping over them. So I imagine some areas just never looked good the entire time. This is one that's not been restored. And can you see the modified date down here below? Does that show on your screen?
Yes.
What date does it say?
7/20/2019.
Okay, so that's when I did this particular one. In this particular case, again, this is one all scanned with just without any filters or cleaning or anything on. Again, I've cleaned them all manually, but this is the sort of gunk that shows up on them, dirt, scratches, and that sort of thing. That this particular batch of slides had been very well cared for, but they still end up with dirt. So I'll go through with the magic brush tool over time. It has not been finally adjusted for color, but you can see it held the color in this one very well, as opposed to like the General Motors one I said was totally gone. Again, another copy of the American Express model. Here's again, this is with digital ice on. If you scan into this one, some of the dirt is the same, like this one here, but others will be gone. So let me just finish with this one real quick. So I have some sets here that have a combination of things that I've done and things that I'm going to do. So we'll bounce back and forth. So we're going into ones that look nice and ones that look not as nice. The golden dandelions at Kodak, which are now at the museum in Rochester, New York. The Belgian waffles. Again, the skies are so blue in New York, again, maybe because of the droughts or something, but this was one that I did restore. I took out the dust and stuff, and it's the food sensation of the fair, Belgium, not Belgium, but Belgium waffles, delicious. And down below, people waiting and eating, and I love the ladies that work there had these outfits with these little hats on, and I've got a picture of one of them just absolutely covered in powdered sugar, and she's smiling and waving to, just being hi to the camera. It looks like the men wear chef hats and the women got to wear waitress outfits.
It's interesting. It's the Belgium Brussels waffles.
Yes. Yeah, it's just like they have Chicago pizza and New York pizza. This was what
Right.
made the Belgian waffles at this fair such a big thing, as opposed to they actually had Belgian waffles at the 62 Seattle fair that didn't take off to the same level. These are a much lighter and fluffier brand of dough that was used in it. And I also used I guess a crystallized sugar for extra content. So, but yeah, just like you would say you were selling New York pizza or Chicago deep dish pizza, they wanted to let everybody know these were the Belgian waffles, or the Brussels waffles rather.
Yeah.
Sure was sloppy. to eat
The
those
ladies
things.
are dressed like See's Candy
I'm
store
sorry?
attendants.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
It's very sloppy to eat those things, isn't it?
The ladies working behind the counter are dressed like See's Candy.
Yeah, yeah, the
People.
ones today, right? Yeah. And Switzerland, the Swiss Watch Pavilion here. And they had a Miss Swiss watch contest every year that you could be official Miss Swiss Watch. Looking out over the Gotham Plaza area, coming probably at the Passerelle here, looking down, all those different booths and everything going on. By the way, I showed concept art a couple weeks ago of things. These pylon towers were originally supposed to go up, go across, and come back down, but they decided no money, we'll just do this. And here's an example of one that's not restored. So take a look at this one, which has been restored, kind of a more gray type of ground as opposed to the initial scan. I don't remember if these are Kodachrome or Ektachrome, but they come out with kind of a bluish tint to it, and I've got to work on those to get them out. But
Yeah, usually it's the Kodachromes that scan blue.
yeah, but just so if anybody thinks that I make all the skies blue on my own, or that I take out the clouds, or I take out the smog, no. Here's unrestored proof that the sky was often blue in New York. The Hall of Free Enterprise. Again, these are all unrestored. We're going to go and hit back and forth to some restored ones. Because what I would do is periodically go into these and just grab things out. And, if somebody said, you have a picture of the Hall of Free Enterprise, I might go look for it and restore it. This one I got a kick out of. It's, again, unrestored, but a fez. I don't know if there was someplace at the fair selling fezzes, or if he was a Shriner that was visiting the fair. But of all the pictures I have, I don't have many people wearing fezzes. And mention about everybody being well dressed. If it looked more like him, I just swear that was my grandfather, because he never went anywhere without a suit and a tie. when he came over to our house for a family picnic and he wasn't wearing a tie, it was like, oh my God, I hope he's okay, you know.
Yeah.
Part of Spain, just a little courtyard area there with some neat decorations. I will fix those up. 7-Up. Dynamic maturity, which all of us old folks know today is the AARP. More of Gotham Plaza. The top of the Passerelle building, benches up there, people just relaxing. Fountains along the main concourse there. More of the Passerelle. These flags, by the way, don't correspond to anything. They're not any particular state, nation, country, or anything. They just were geometric patterns to provide color and eye candy. There in the background, by the way, much to the ire of Robert Moses,
Yeah.
is our friend Jane Parker. So free advertising, and he sued them to take it down or turn it off. They did come to a compromise. They did agree that they would turn it off during the fireworks show. So at night, Jane Parker would turn off the lit up sign, and as soon as the fireworks show ended, poof, it came back on and was advertising their fake products.
Was Jane Parker there before the fair? I mean, the
Yes,
sign.
it was. And
Oh,
but he didn't want it there, and he wanted them to take it down. He was trying to get the city to make him turn it off, take it down, or whatever. And he sued them, and the court basically just laughed at him. Are you crazy? You know, they have the right to do it there. Just like in the background, you go to Mets games for years, you used to see Serval Zippers, which is now the U-Haul storage place. But people put up signs for a reason. They want to be seen. The sort of thing you would not do today for show, have a garbage truck reeking of stinky garbage going through the fairground with people and everything. Today you would try to put in, service roads and that sort of thing to do it. But you can you think about these buses stunk, with the exhaust fumes, the garbage trucks and everything. It was the design of the times, things that hopefully you would not do today.
Were the glider rides electric?
No, they were I believe they were propane powered as opposed to gas powered. You can see the exhaust vent right here for the engine. They did have problems with them overheating, but the glider rides did better than the escorters, which tended to overheat even more. But at different times, you'll see the glider ride with this fiberglass canopy popped open on the super hot days to try to get some extra airflow in there. Just a nice view down below. People, they're lining up here to get on, of all things, a glider ride. We'll see more of that coming up.
That previous one with RCA was fairly early because they hadn't changed the sign to say "see yourself."
Yes. Yeah, it was one of the signs they made, changes they made during the fair. See yourself on Color TV. This was the official Color TV center.
It was on the slide I need to tell you.
And down here, all these lockers. So again, we're at the Passerelle area. They had lockers scattered around the fairgrounds, but you could come in here and put all your heavy coats and everything in there and come back and get them later on in the day. And this one I got a kick out of. First thought was, oh my God, they're circling the wagons. The Indians are attacking. But this was the boarding area for the glider rides. They had several different type of tours. One was the journal tour of the fair. The other was we're going to go back to the lake amusement areas. They later ended up putting signs on the tugs, so you had a better idea that making sure you were getting on the correct glider ride. Again, one of the entrance pylons. Lots of people. Selling the guidebook to the fair, and I guess they had the official straw hat of the guidebook sellers. And you can see the dates on these again. I scanned these quite a while ago. these are on my next list of folders to be done. So some of them are done, some of them are not. Excuse me, I had to make the dog loves to sit on my lap. But after a while, you realize I can't feel my feet anymore, so I had to move her there. Sorry. Again, just more of the Johnson wax.
It's
This
too
one's
bad.
got an interesting angle. It's the house of good taste. 3 beautiful homes with the cocktails and a restaurant, but you couldn't get to the cocktail bar or the restaurant unless you paid the admission to get in to go see the houses. That seemed to me to be kind of a design flaw in laying things out that, it's like, paying a cover charge to go to a bar. You had to pay a cover charge here to go and eat your dinner. So, but these are the 3 different designs, houses they had by prominent architects. And you could go in and they would have a catalog to tell you where you could buy these patio chairs, where you could buy the piano, all the rest of it.
Hey, this is the first time I've seen a TV antenna.
Oh, yeah, for the house. Yeah, they had it's a good catch. I noticed that when I was looking at it. They had the TV inside the house and no cable at that point in time. So if you want to show the TV playing, you have to have a TV antenna to feed your TV inside your model house. There's also, I believe, one back here in this other model house here.
Yeah.
And of course, Jane Parker in the back. Another view of the house there.
Is Jane Parker the name of a brand name for like?
A&P Foods. It was their Betty Crocker, their generic thing. So just like if you go to, like if you have an Aldi market, I think their food is all called something like Happy Belly, muffins or something.
Right,
Jane
right.
Parker was their brand to make you think that, Jane was in the kitchen selling stuff at all your A&P. A&P being originally the Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company. So we had a big A&P market in Baldwin where I lived, and Jane Parker was, all the baked stuff were from her. I don't know if they sold them anywhere other than A&P markets. Matter of fact, if you go and you look at it, we'll zoom in here real quick. It's Jane
Is
Parker.
that Jane Parker sign still up? Is it
A&P
still up there
baked
today?
goods or baked foods.
Is
What?
that sign still up there today?
Sorry,
Is the
what was
Jane
that?
Parker sign still up there?
No,
No.
I don't. The whole A&P chain is gone, and the sign, I believe, is long, long gone. A&P doesn't.
Yeah,
that's
that became Tasty, and that was the best smelling part of Queens off the expressway. Every time you made that turn, you got to smell the fresh bread being made.
I didn't know Queens had a smell.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
well, that was the nicest smell that you can get was when you were rounding that turn right after you saw Shea Stadium, and you would get that early morning aroma. They were baking bread.
Yeah.
It became
Yeah.
tasty.
I don't know if
Yeah.
any of you that live in the LA area have been driving down the 405. I used to do it all the time. I had very early reports going to LAX. What is that? Hawaiian sweet bread. What is the name of that brand?
Kings.
Oh, Kings.
Kings. Their bakery is there. Oh my God, it smells so good.
Oh, it smells great. Yeah.
Well, when we
No, it's
lived in
just like
Brooklyn-
the Helms bakeries that used to be in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
You could go by any of their bakery buildings and you could smell the bread cooking.
Brock, I just read that one of the Helms bakeries is back in business now.
Really?
Yeah, somebody
Wow.
bought the brand name and they restored it, and they're selling Helms products again.
Really?
I
Lived
wonder
in
if they're going to
Brooklyn.
drive around the neighborhoods with their little trucks and sell you. You can come out to the front sidewalk and flag them down and buy your bread and donuts.
Yeah, that was before I got out here, but yeah, I've seen pictures. They had the big thing slide out, and
Yeah.
Yeah, when I lived in Brooklyn, we would go to Prospect Park a lot, and the bakery they had was a Wonder Bread bakery right off the edge of Prospect Park, and boy, that just smelled wonderful. And then one of the racetracks is which let's see, is it Aqueduct that's gone now? Which racetrack is still in New York?
Yeah, Aqueduct is gone now.
Yeah, what's the other one that's still there? Bellevue, Belmont.
Belmont. Yeah.
Yeah.
Belmont.
right by there was an Entenmann's Bakery that was
Yeah.
right off the side of the road. And is again, if you're driving home from grandma's house and you'd go by and just smell all the wonderful stuff they were making. So
Yeah.
Entenmann's are the best.
yeah.
Yeah,
Chicago had a chocolate processing plant that I used to drive by, and suddenly I wanted a cup of cocoa.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier putting up scaffolds, changing out the IBMs, and putting in ones that will light up at night. So that's underway here. NCR. Yep, you can see the arches here are different than were done on that model. They don't dip down, dip back up. They just go straight across. The pavilion. He's all set for duty here. He's got his nice sick. He's just looking between him and the ever-present nuns. Nobody's going to act up in this part of the fair.
It's like he's looking for trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you wonder if they let him have one bullet. Festival of Gas and the restaurant inside. Some more people with their hat feathers.
Yeah, eat here and get gas.
Yeah.
You know, it's actually interesting. If you go to the world's the site today, the Queen's Museum has a exhibit on all the terrible, terrible, terrible things the World's Fair did to everybody that traumatized us and made us all horrible people. And one of the pavilions, I haven't seen it. I've only seen the things that people posted about it. But they were on again about the pavilion of 2,000 tribes and how this was American imperialism and shoving this down the throats of Africa and everything. And I'm glad I'm not there. I actually, I had offered for a long period of time to help with any exhibits, and no, we've got it. And they put this thing together, which basically the World's Fair was evil and bad. Then recently, 3 weeks ago, oh, Bill, we need some pictures real fast in a hurry for something that's got to go up this weekend. Because I think they had to show that the fair wasn't all bad, so they wanted some good pictures of the fair. So
Yeah,
put them in, or how it balanced it out.
yeah. That Remembering the Future book, I've got it sitting right next to me. I think that was the catalog for one of the fair-related exhibits at the Queen's Museum. Basically, has an extremely negative tone. About
that's terrible.
architecture, about the planning, everything was done wrong, basically.
Yeah, it was holding back communities of color. It was doing this. It was doing that. It was we've talked before. There were predictions about mowing down the rainforest and how good it would be to pave everything in the world over and put a GM car on it. Yeah, the fair had issues and everything, but the fair was also a lot of fun. And I think you could go to everything if you like. And I don't like McDonald's, but if you like McDonald's, you could go and say you're happy. But if you don't like McDonald's, you could write a terrible thing on everything McDonald's does. At some point, you just have to say, you're looking at stuff with 60 years later worth of viewpoint and perspective. Yeah, I mean, we talked last week about the terrible things you would do at a World's Fair with, little people, that you would put them in a midget village and, have to pay people paying money to come see them. You would take American Indians, put them in a teepee and charge money. We don't do that stuff now, and it was wrong to do it then. But that was what is accepted then. And so to me, to have an exhibit to say there was some good and some bad makes sense. To say it was bad, I don't know.
Yeah.
Brussels had that issue. The Congo Pavilion, they had only for a few weeks after it opened, but it was Congolese, is that the correct word? Village.
Yeah.
And populated by people from the Congo, and visitors started throwing bananas at them.
Yeah.
And they closed it. But about a couple of years ago, a lot of my Black friends or Black co-workers were posting pictures of it, saying this is a zoo that featured Black people. And I corrected it. I said it was inappropriate, obviously, but it wasn't really built as a zoo. It was built as an exhibit at a World's Fair, and was quickly closed down.
Yeah, and I think it's terrible that the Queen's Museum would host would host that completely.
Yeah, again, if you want to do something well-rounded, it was good, it was bad. I'm tend to look at things. I'm a glass half full sort of guy, as opposed to glass. I'll go out and I'll say, well, it's a nice day, and somebody said, well, it's really breezy. Yeah, but the nice breeze is keeping the smog away. And yeah, it's messing up my hair. Who cares? So for the exhibit to say the fair was bad on every level, no, the fair was good on a bunch of levels. And like I said, I don't know what they did with the pictures I recently sent them. Hopefully it now looks less bad. Let's just move on here. Again, some of these we know real well. Some pictures come up really well. They hold their own, and then whatever reason, storage or whatever, you can see some crud up in the sky. I'll make that go away.
Yeah, it's a drone.
The barriers are down here again. I'm gonna have to start looking in more of these and see how many of them have the cloth panels up and down. These characters came from the Caribbean Pavilion. They would be around the Unisphere quite often and talked in other fairs and other events. You try to act as a Pied Piper. You send these characters out, they go around, and then hopefully you follow them back to the Caribbean Pavilion and have yourself a nice Caribbean dinner, which as the time progressed, they would also serve Belgian waffles, because everybody served Belgian waffles. Family phone booth down at the base of Korea. Masons. Got one more set of folders we'll go through, and then we will call it quits. Oops, excuse me.
Bill, I'm gonna have to bow out today, but are we gonna have a meeting next week?
Yes, next week I think I'm going to do Expo 67.
Okay, yeah, I've got some stuff I gotta get to, and we're running a little bit late today, so.
Yep. See you later, Brock. It was great seeing you on Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah.
See you, Brock.
See you next week, everybody.
Merry
Bye-bye.
Christmas.
Yeah, Brock.
So General Motors, again, this is a mixture of good and not good, so we'll flip through them. Excuse me, grab some water here. Don't know that the temperature, but it's a lot warmer than the 32 degrees we saw before. The Mustang just out of sight down at the bottom. Me, I would have been taking a picture more of the Mustang than the building, but what's kind of fun is you can come back and try to date some of these. Sometimes the slides are processed. Sometimes the people wrote down, January or say July 18th, and you knew exactly it. Other times you get a date and that will tell you, some information. It was my family, though, the way my mother got the pictures developed, this might have said, August of 69 or something. And every now and then people do talk about the 66 New York World Fair. No, it's because their parents are like mine. They would get around to taking it to the drugstore eventually. But sometimes you can see some things here coming, Carol Baker, Anne-Marie Alberghetti, that sort of thing. You could start going to the newspapers and trying to nail it down to a closer period of time. What great fun if you're a kid to go out there and drive around and smack into the car in front of you. He's being official. He's giving directions. And there's our friend, the Brontosaurus again, but now we're seeing him from ground level. And again, isn't it amazing how blue the sky is? It's just no clouds. It's funny, you don't stop and think about it, and then all of a sudden you realize there's just no clouds. I do have a few, like everything else, people tend to go more on a nice day. So on a rainy day, there's less people. You don't want to take your camera out and get it wet or whatever. So I guess all that makes sense. Chrysler is
When I was there, I recall a lot of gray skies, but again, no fluffy cloud days.
Yeah, well, I tell you, it was really interesting. Back at this period of time, almost every apartment building had its own incinerator, and you would take your stuff to the central shaft where the elevators were, dump it down a chute, and then the superintendent would burn it all. And they came to realize this was a very, very bad thing, so they started outlawing the incinerators. I remember going to my grandmother's apartment building and having great fun, thinking that I could just dump all the stuff down the hatch and it disappeared, as opposed to our house, I had to carry it out and stick it out at the curb for somebody to take it away. But the smog was really bad in New York. When I worked in Manhattan, I think it was 1970 for the phone company. there were days you would come home and if you wore a white shirt to work, you came home and it was gray and dingy. So it's really cleaned up a lot. But back at this period of time, smog was a real issue. This one I found interesting with somebody in a wheelchair. You see very, very few pictures of people in wheelchair at the fair. I don't know if they rented them there at all. I know they rented the scooters, you know, the little that for kids, but I don't remember seeing any verbiage about renting a wheelchair. So if you went, you had to bring your own, and I'm sure that greatly reduced the number of people that were able to go.
It's 12:30.
Yes, we're gonna go to lunch soon.
Well, I have to pick Elizabeth up at 2. So
Oh, okay, I'll be done in a moment. Carol's got an event at the Getty, so she's just filling me in. Right here, real quick, we zoom in here. Sea Hunt. You can come in and see, White Bridges was never there that I know of, but there was a whole show. The TV show was very popular and they had a exhibit in there. Oh, this will give you an example of most times I scan the pictures twice. Once with the digital recovery. Well, I scan them with the digital ice to take out the dirt and scratches, but sometimes that throws off the colors if you use the digital rock, what they call recovery of color. So here's just an example of one slide scan without the recovery of color on, and this one with it on. A lot of times, though, it really tends to blow out some of the highlights and that sort of thing. So what I do generally is do it twice, and I'll do a sample restoration on this version, which has more definition to the roof here. Then I'll compare it to this one and see which one I like the best. It also, the ROC recovery of color sometimes really goes wackadoodle on reds. But in this one, wow, there's clouds. This is a rare one. I got to put this in a special thing of clouds. Again, another example how it can change. So I'll scan them both and then work on it. Sometimes when it's interesting. This one was obviously shot very dark and gloomy, or they're all stored at the same time as this one, which was exactly how this was shot, much brighter. And so sometimes they're overexposed, sometimes they're under. But luckily you can fix most of that. Outside of Denmark, and this was the the Protestant Orthodox Pavilion. More people wandering around, everybody wearing hats. Carousel of Progress. Can't make out a wait time on this one. It's over here, but I don't think it shows up enough. There you go. Ever present none. My mother absolutely loved this area because it had a Hummel shop in it, and she was always buying Hummels. I thought this was interesting too. This is the only one I can think of where they actually stenciled the name on the trash can, so nobody took it to some other part of the fair. And it looks like somebody needs to come and pick up the trash. Online, there's people that are able to figure out exactly which order of nuns some of these belong to by whatever type bib they're wearing, or the rope with the knots in it and everything. All I knew is I was scared to death of them when I was in Catholic school, and I kept my healthy distance. In International Plaza, we can go get ourselves a nice thing of barbecue chicken. Hop over to Hawaii. This was one I got a kick out of. You could get your portrait sketches done in here, and every now and then they show up with pictures that people had, and they had the mats on it would actually say from the 1964-65 New York World's Fair. So that's how you get an idea of whether you're still was, because again, the cutouts, whether it was done there or someplace else. Over to Africa. Treehouse Restaurant. Lots of blue skies though, huh?
Bill, do you think possibly the blue skies are from the photographer using a polarizing filter?
I'd say not, because there's so many different photographers that it shows up in so many different places. I just think, like I said, you can see look how everything is scorched. It just wasn't raining. I mean, I can remember the reservoir in Rockville Center, going down to the point where rather than two big lakes on the other side of the Southern State Parkway, there were two little rivers of water going through the mud flats. I mean, it was really, really dry back in New York in these days, just like they've had a big drought there this year.
Yeah, the important thing to note is no clouds. This
Yeah.
slide film was deliberately designed to blue up the skies.
Yeah, but if there was any sort of cloud, it would show. This one I got a kick out of. How could the World's Fair lose money when they had to have two armored cars picking up all the money? And what's interesting is I don't know of any reports ever trying to rob or steal the armored cars. There was, I believe, a robbery that was done in one of the offices of, I'm trying to remember, was at the Belgian Village. Somebody came in, just like they robbed one at Freedom Land. So there were sometimes they would stick up various offices, but not doing an armored car heist in the middle of the fair. And we're just about done. This one, I don't know what she's doing. We're again, Pakistan. She's got a chair outside here, which is obviously put here, and I don't quite know what she's doing here, but entertaining the crowds, doing something, or maybe she just brought the chair out and taking a break and she's going back from lunch. But kind of interesting to try to figure it out. Lithuanian Wayside Cross, destroyed by vandals post-fair. Kodak. And that does it for today. So let me look real quick here at the chat. Okay. Joey's playing us some music, huh?
Hey, Bill, you remember when you were talking about transportation and how they stole the buses and everything?
Yeah.
Isn't that about the time that Disney decided to make every department, responsible for its own income and expenses? And so, I was thinking that maybe that was part of the reason why they didn't take your idea, was because they couldn't see how it was going to generate any more income.
Well, that was one of the issues. We said we were going to, because I thought it'd be, again, great to have the subway system, but Epcot was all one price. There were no A to E tickets. And if we were still on the E-ticket ride, that I think would have been a real moneymaker for people at the end of the day getting out there. But the whole issue became, as you mentioned, we build this, it's going to cost us whatever amount of money we came up with, $4 million.
Right.
How do we pay that $4 million back?
Exactly.
Again, that's where, to me, I never knew him, but I would think Walt would have put something like that in, okay? Because
Yes,
the site is so
because
big.
he saw the holistic,
Yeah,
company where, like, so the new accountants came in and said, nope, every department has to justify their existence. And
yeah, they've really gone crazy with that at Disney, to the point where if you want a picture and it's got to come out of the Disney photo library, you've got to pay the Disney photo library for, so even if it's not for commercial use. If you're at Disneyland and you want to get a picture of something just to put in the employee center, you've got to go to the photo library and pay them for it. This is no joke. There are different Disney departments that come to me for pictures because I will sell it to them cheaper than the Disney photo library will.
oh my
So,
God.
yeah, and in some cases, it's the official Disney photo. I mean, it was printed by Disney. It's a black and white still, and it said, "Do you have a copy of
Right.
that?" I do, but I can scan it for you for $10. With a Disney photo library, went 75 or something. So it's
Yeah.
because everybody, when we worked at Disney, when Carol and I were there, you could walk into the photo library and they would even take your own picture for free to put on your passport application. They didn't charge you for it at all. Today, good luck, I mean, but if
Right.
you walked in and you said, "Hey, my brother is real nut. He really loves Mary Poppins. Could I get some Mary Poppins pictures?" They'd give you 20, 30 of them to take home, go and bring it, give it to your brother, have a good time. Today, first of all, they'd say, "No, we can't do it because it looks like licensing and legal and all the rest of it," but then they would charge you for it. So
Yeah. I actually used to work with the guy that led the charge on, making that happen. And I just, I was just like, looked at him and said, well, that's nothing to brag about.
No, and they used to do so many things too, like when there was no production going on, we had an entire photo department, people who would take all the set stills and everything else. And when there's nothing going on, they would say, okay, why don't you go down to Disneyland and take some pictures just to keep the people employed. Now it's like, well, why don't we shut down the department? We'll hire people back on the day that we need them. So you lost a lot of continuity and, the tradition of what was known there.
Definitely.
So I need to run. Carol has an event at the Getty and I want to feed her lunch before we go. And then next week I'm planning on Expo 67. Appreciate your folks joining today and appreciate folks like Wayne that came to the talk yesterday. So
Next week, Carrie and I will be in Tasmania.
Tasmania.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
You
then, yeah,
double?
then we head up to Melbourne, then Sydney for New Year. Well, Melbourne for Christmas, Sydney for New Year's, and then up to the Great Barrier Reef
Oh,
for
wow.
a week of January.
You gonna go diving?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things in the world to do.
Are you certified now or Patty?
You know, no, when you say diving, I mean snorkeling.
Oh, snorkeling.
I have all the diving stuff, and I've taken the classes many times, but I've never done the open dive, to get certification. So
Yeah, Carol and I were both certified as NAUI advanced divers, and the gear sits there and it gathers dust, and the wetsuit it seems to have shrunk. It doesn't fit anymore.
I had that happen when we went to Tahiti. I was like, holy crap. But I've lost a lot of weight since then, so I think I'll be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're really looking forward to it. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I see
It's
you've
all
got
the koala
Glory
bear.
again. So, well, wish you
Right.
all goodbye. See you
Thank
next
you.
week, except for
Take
Tom.
care, Bill.
Enjoy
Great show.
Tasmania.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Yeah,
Very nice.
Carol,
Really
have a
great
good meeting
pictures.
at the.
See you next Saturday. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.